Imagine spending over $40,000 just to answer one burning question. Could stretching be the secret weapon for muscle hypertrophy? That's exactly what one determined individual did, diving headfirst into the science of fitness to uncover the truth. In a world where the fitness community is constantly chasing the next big thing, whether it's stretch-focused training, progressive overload, or the perfect resistance profile, this study stands out. Why? Because it challenges everything we thought we knew about muscle growth. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want to know if we've been doing it all wrong? The obsession with stretching isn't new, but it's certainly gaining momentum. From loaded stretching techniques to experimental designs that test the limits of joint articulation, the fitness world is buzzing with curiosity. Social media is flooded with videos of inclined curls, triceps extensions, and even cable versus dumbbell exercises, all claiming to maximize muscle hypertrophy. But here's the kicker. While these methods look impressive, are they truly backed by science? That's where this $40,000 study comes in, aiming to separate fact from fiction. Before diving into the nitty-gritty of the research, it's worth revisiting the basics. Stretching has long been a staple in fitness routines, but its role in muscle growth has often been overshadowed by strength training and progressive overload. Sure, we've all heard about the importance of full range of motion and exercise modifications, but how often do we stop to question the science behind it? This study not only revisits these fundamentals, but also sets the stage for a deeper exploration into the biomechanics of muscle hypertrophy. And trust me, what comes next will make you rethink everything you know about training. The roots of stretch-focused training go deeper than most people realize. Back in the 1970s, researchers stumbled upon something fascinating. Birds subjected to prolonged stretching experienced dramatic muscle growth. Yes, you read that right. Birds. While it might sound odd, these early studies laid the groundwork for what we now know about the relationship between stretch and muscle hypertrophy. Fast forward to today, and the fitness world is still trying to unlock the full potential of this discovery, now applying it to humans with exercises like loaded stretching for calves and chest. Human experiments have since taken the stage, and the results are equally intriguing. For instance, studies on loaded stretching in muscles like the pecs and calves have shown promising outcomes. Think about exercises like overhead triceps extensions or inclined curls. Movements that emphasize a deep stretch. These aren't just random choices, they're backed by biomechanics and comparative studies that highlight how stretch-focused movements can target muscle fibers in ways traditional exercises might not. But here's the kicker. Not all stretches are created equal, and the science is still catching up. What's really interesting is how different exercises compare when it comes to stretch emphasis. Take triceps pushdowns versus overhead triceps extensions, for example. While both are effective, the latter places the muscle in a more stretched position, potentially offering unique benefits for muscle hypertrophy. This raises a critical question. Are we underestimating the power of stretch in our training routines? As we'll see, the answer isn't as straightforward as it seems, and the history of stretching is just the tip of the iceberg. Here's the million-dollar question, or rather, the $40,000 question. Are exercises that emphasize the stretch really superior for muscle growth? It's a bold claim, but one that's been gaining traction in the fitness community. Stretch-focused training has been hailed as the ultimate hack for muscle hypertrophy, but is it truly better than exercises that focus on the squeeze? Think about it. How often do we hear about the importance of the stretch versus the contraction? This study set out to answer that exact question, diving into the science to uncover the truth. The distinction between stretching a muscle and squeezing it during a contraction is more than just gym talk. It's a fundamental difference in biomechanics. Stretching places the muscle under tension at its longest length, while squeezing focuses on peak contraction at its shortest. But here's the catch. While both methods have their advocates, there's a surprising lack of data comparing their effectiveness. This gap in research is exactly what this study aimed to fill, using tools like MRI and experimental design to dig deeper than ever before. What makes this hypothesis so compelling is its potential to reshape how we train. If stretch-focused exercises truly outperform their squeeze-based counterparts, it could mean a shift in how we approach strength training and progressive overload. Imagine swapping out your usual cable curls for preacher curls or prioritizing deep squats over partial reps. The implications are huge, but as we'll see, the science isn't always as clear-cut as we'd like it to be. When it comes to scientific studies on muscle growth, not all research is created equal. Many previous studies have focused on muscles like the biceps, quads, and calves, popular choices because they're easy to measure. But here's the problem. These studies often ignore other muscle groups, leaving us with an incomplete picture of how stretch-focused training impacts the entire body. For example, what about muscles like the glutes or deltoids? These gaps in research leave us wondering if the benefits of stretching apply universally or only to specific muscles. Another issue lies in the stability of the exercises tested. Think about it. Exercises like preacher curls or triceps pushdowns are relatively stable, making them easier to measure. But what happens when you introduce more complex movements like squats or hip thrusts? The stability, or lack thereof, can significantly impact the results, making it harder to draw clear conclusions. This raises an important question. Are the results of these studies truly reflective of real-world training scenarios, or are they limited by the controlled environments in which they're conducted? And then there's the technology used to measure muscle growth. Many studies rely on ultrasound, which, while useful, only measures a small portion of the muscle. This means we're often missing the bigger picture. Literally, for instance, an MRI provides a 3D view of the muscle, offering a more comprehensive look at growth across its entire structure. Without this level of detail, we're left with data that might not tell the whole story. These limitations highlight why a fresh approach, like the one in this $40,000 study, was so desperately needed. To tackle the gaps left by previous research, this study took a bold and meticulous approach. It involved 20 participants, each undergoing a unique experimental design. Here's the twist. Half of their body trained with a stretch focus, while the other half focused on the squeeze. This clever split allowed researchers to directly compare the effects of both methods within the same individuals. Eliminating variables like genetics or training history, talk about precision. And with an impressive 97% adherence rate to the training protocol, the commitment of these participants was nothing short of extraordinary. The study didn't stop at clever design. It brought cutting-edge technology into the mix. Custom-built machines were used to control the resistance profile of each exercise, ensuring consistency between the stretch and squeeze groups. For example, preacher curls and incline curls were adjusted to emphasize the stretch, while cable curls focused on the contraction. But the real game-changer, MRI scans. Unlike traditional methods like ultrasound, MRI provided a 3D view of muscle growth, capturing changes across the entire muscle structure. This level of detail was critical for understanding the true impact of each training style. What's even more impressive is the sheer scale of the data collected. Out of 400 scheduled sessions, 388 were completed, a testament to the dedication of both the participants and researchers. This high level of adherence ensured the results were as reliable as possible. By combining advanced experimental design, cutting-edge technology, and a rigorous training protocol, this study set a new standard for research in muscle hypertrophy. But what did all this effort reveal? The results might surprise you. The results of this groundbreaking study were as surprising as they were enlightening. Despite all the hype around stretch-focused training, the data revealed that muscle growth was nearly identical between the stretch and squeeze groups. Whether participants were performing incline curls to emphasize the stretch or cable curls to focus on the squeeze, the outcomes were consistent. Muscles like the pecs, lateral deltoids, posterior deltoids, and glutes all showed similar levels of hypertrophy, proving that both methods can be equally effective when done with proper technique and effort. One of the most fascinating takeaways was the role of full range of motion in muscle growth. The study demonstrated that exercises performed with a complete range of motion, whether stretch-focused or squeeze-focused, were sufficient to stimulate significant hypertrophy. For instance, deep squats and overhead triceps extensions, which naturally emphasize a greater stretch, didn't outperform their counterparts when the range of motion was matched. This finding reinforces the importance of movement quality over obsessing about where the resistance is concentrated. What does this mean for your training? It's simple. You don't need to overhaul your routine to chase the latest trend. Whether you prefer loaded stretching or focusing on the contraction, the key is consistency, effort, and respecting biomechanics. This study proves that as long as you're training with progressive overload and proper technique, you're on the right track. But don't get too comfortable. There's more to unpack about how these results challenge previous research, and what it means for future training strategies. The results of this study sparked a deeper conversation about the role of stretching in muscle hypertrophy. First, let's talk about the degree of muscle stretch. Biarticular muscles, like the quads and calves, seem to benefit more from stretch-focused training compared to others. Why these muscles naturally experience greater elongation during exercises like deep squats or loaded calf stretches. But here's the kicker. While the stretch is important, it's not the sole driver of muscle growth. The study showed that even muscles with less stretch potential, like the glutes, responded equally well to both training styles. Another key factor is the importance of full range of motion. Exercises that emphasize depth, like deep squats or inclined curls, are often associated with better muscle activation and hypertrophy. But this study challenges the idea that making an exercise harder at the stretched position automatically leads to superior results. For example, while preacher curls and overhead triceps extensions target the stretch, they didn't outperform other exercises when the range of motion was matched. This suggests that the stretch itself is just one piece of the puzzle, not the entire solution. Finally, let's address resistance profiles. Many fitness enthusiasts believe that altering the resistance to make an exercise harder at the stretch point is the ultimate hack for hypertrophy. However, this study found no additional advantage to this approach. Instead, it reinforced the idea that consistent effort, proper biomechanics, and progressive overload matter far more. So, while stretch-focused training has its place, it's not the magic bullet many believe it to be. But what about the limitations of this study? That's where things get even more interesting. No study is perfect, and this one is no exception. One of the most notable limitations was the use of untrained subjects. While this choice makes sense, beginners tend to show rapid muscle growth, making results easier to measure. It also introduces a potential bias. After all, untrained individuals respond differently to exercise compared to seasoned lifters. This raises the question, would the results have been the same if the study had focused on advanced athletes? It's a fascinating angle that future research will need to explore. Another limitation lies in the muscles that were studied. While the research covered key groups like the pecs, glutes, and deltoids, it left out others that might respond differently to stretch-focused training. For example, muscles like the hamstrings or forearms, which have unique biomechanical properties, weren't included. Could these muscles benefit more or less from stretch emphasis? Without data on these groups, we're left with unanswered questions about the broader applicability of the findings. Finally, there's the potential influence of novelty. Introducing new exercises like loaded stretching or incline curls can naturally lead to greater effort and motivation, especially for untrained participants. This newness effect might have skewed the results, making it hard to isolate the true impact of stretch versus squeeze. While the study was groundbreaking in its design, these limitations highlight the need for further research to confirm and expand on its findings. And speaking of practical takeaways, let's dive into how this all applies to your training. So, what does all this mean for your training? The beauty of this study is that it simplifies what can often feel overwhelming. You don't need to obsess over whether stretch-focused exercises are superior to squeeze-based ones. Instead, the key takeaway is this: consistency and full range of motion are your best friends. For example, exercises like hip thrusts or cable flies can be just as effective as traditional movements like squats or bench presses, as long as you're putting in the effort and respecting proper biomechanics. One of the most practical lessons here is the flexibility it offers in exercise selection. Let's say you're someone who struggles with deep squats due to joint articulation issues. You can still achieve muscle hypertrophy by opting for alternatives like Bulgarian split squats or leg presses, which allow for a controlled range of motion. Similarly, if you're working on your biceps, incline curls and preacher curls both deliver results. So pick the one that feels best for your body and training style. The point is, there's no single perfect exercise. It's about finding what works for you. This study also reinforces the importance of progressive overload. Whether you're focusing on stretch or squeeze, the principle remains the same. You need to challenge your muscles over time. That could mean increasing the weight, adding more reps, or even incorporating loaded stretching techniques for variety. The bottom line, you have options. And as long as you're training with intention and effort, you're setting yourself up for success. But before we wrap things up, let's talk about some final recommendations to take your training to the next level. If there's one thing this study makes clear, It's that variety and flexibility are the cornerstones of effective training. Incorporating stretch-focused exercises for biarticular muscles, like overhead triceps extensions or loaded stretches for calves and quads, can be a game changer. But here's the catch. These exercises don't need to replace your current routine. Instead, think of them as tools in your arsenal, ready to be used when you want to target specific areas or add variety to your workouts. The secret isn't in choosing one method over the other, it's in mastering both. What's most exciting is how this research reinforces the importance of full range of motion. Whether you're doing deep squats, incline curls, or even cable flies, the key is to respect your body's biomechanics and push through a complete range. And don't forget about progressive overload. It's the glue that holds everything together. Adding weight, increasing reps, or even experimenting with loaded stretching can all help you achieve consistent muscle hypertrophy. The takeaway: you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to keep it rolling. So, where do you go from here? Start by experimenting with stretch-focused exercises in your routine. Add depth to your movements, prioritize consistency, and don't shy away from trying new techniques. Remember, the best training program is the one you stick to. And if you're ready to take your fitness journey to the next level, there's so much more to learn. If there's one thing this study proves, it's that variety and consistency are key to effective training. Incorporating stretch-focused exercises like overhead triceps extensions or loaded stretches for quads can add value. But they don't need to replace your current routine. Focus on full range of motion, progressive overload, and finding what works best for your body. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, share it with a friend looking to level up their training, and comment below. Have you tried stretch-focused or squeeze-focused exercises? Which works best for you? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more science-backed tips to transform your fitness journey. See you in the next video.